Orchid Island.
Well, coming up this weekend at the Westminster Mall is the wonderful Newport Harbor Orchid Society, their summer exotic plant and orchid festival. Joe Rupp is with me today. Nice to have you back, sir.
Good to see you, Ken.
This is a lot of fun that you folks put on. I think you're up at Westminster Mall twice a year?
Yeah, we normally have our larger show in February, right around Valentine's Day. And we've been doing that for about 5 or 6 years now. The summer show came about as a result of vendors at the February show who wanted a show to be able to display and sell plants. And so we decided to go ahead forward with that. And it's been very successful for us.
Yeah, I bet it has. And I know this one is all kinds of plants. And of course, Orchid Society, that's the main topic here. And what's really nice, you know, in the past, what we've talked about is nowadays you can find orchids anywhere.
Yeah, Trader Joe's.
Trader Joe's.
Tons of them.
They do, and they're, you know, they're fairly inexpensive. And what's interesting about them is there's so many different varieties, and they can last for years, right? Just depending on the kind you get and how they're treated.
The more common orchid that you see frequently at Trader Joe's is the Phalaenopsis orchid, and they're everywhere. The plant will last for months if you take care of them.
Yeah.
The flower will last. And they're not fragrant, unfortunately.
Yeah, you would think they're fragrant, and they're not.
At least most of them are, and I'm sure there are some varieties that do are fragrant. This particular plant is native to Central and South America.
Oh, okay.
It is a hybrid.
Beautiful plant.
Yeah, it's a hybrid. It's called Miss Wonderful, and it's an absolutely breathtaking plant. I have another one that has more flowers on it, but it's a little bit larger, so I didn't bring it.
Once the flowers are gone, really interesting. It just so happened this week that I'm on one of those neighborhood, whatever it's called, next door neighborhood things where I live, and somebody actually posted all the flowers have fallen off my orchid. Does that mean it's dead? And of course, no, they come back. At least some of the orchids I've had, they'll just kind of go dormant, especially the ones that have the little flowers that kind of arc out this way, and they dry out and they fall off and they come back again.
Well, when the flowers, we call it a flower spike. That's a flower spike there. When that dies back, it's just the easiest thing to do is just cut that little dead flower spike off, and it'll rebloom next year.
Yeah, so that's a good point. Would you cut it off down below here? How do you prune these off? Let's say this flower dries out. I think that's where some people get confused with orchids, because roses, you go out and many flowers, you deadhead them.
Yeah.
Same thing with these?
Yeah, you just cut that flower spike off as close to the base of the orchid as you can. These plants bloom on new growth, so it'll produce a new growth sometime this summer, and next summer it'll produce another beautiful flower.
Now, watering, the way I was told, and I've been doing this, I don't know if it's right, is that usually once a week, just depending on the time of the year, of course, is that usually there's a pot inside a pot here. I'll fill it with water and I'll let it sit there for an hour or so it's soaking, and then I'll let it drain, and so it's nice and saturated. And I don't know if that's right. I've been doing that with the Trader Joe's kind of ones.
Has it worked for you?
It has.
Yeah.
It has. And again, different times of the year. If you're in the springtime and you're not have hot, dry weather, we don't have the air conditioning going, it might be every 2 weeks or whatever it is.
It is a good idea periodically with all plants, even house plants, to let water run through the pot and drain and leach some of the salts that accumulate there. These plants are susceptible to salt damage just like anything else is. And so it's really a good idea periodically to just let water run through it and leach the salts out and any other minerals that have accumulated, and let it drain, and then perhaps give it a light dose of fertilizer.
Okay, the kind of like that I've seen orchid fertilizer.
The orchid fertilizer is the general fertilizer you can get at Home Depot or Armstrong or any place like that.
Okay, now the other question is, although I have mine indoors, you can put these outside, which you know, in their natural environment, that's what they are. But around here, you know, with the extreme heat, what's the best way? Should they be in a shady location?
Yeah, they should be in a shady location with perhaps dappled light.
Okay.
This particular orchid likes a fair amount of light. It does well outside. It'll even grow during the wintertime out here.
Wow. Okay.
As long as it doesn't get, you know, too cold. In Southern California, it never really gets that cold.
Right.
So that plant will do well in a not in direct sun because they will burn. But if you give it shaded light, it'll do well. This plant.
Now that's an orchid as well, because I'm not used to seeing an orchid that is an orchid plant that has full of flowers. I'm used to seeing them, they have one or two.
This is called, its proper name is Miltoniopsis.
Okay.
It's native to Central America, down in the southern parts of Mexico and in Central America, Colombia, Ecuador, Venezuela. This is oftentimes called a pansy orchid because it looks so much like a pansy.
Yeah.
It is very fragrant. In a warm room with a lot of light, it'll just it's breathtaking. You walk in and you're very much aware that it's there. And it lasts a fair amount of time. These will last for several weeks.
Okay.
But
now with these, when planting them out, or having them outside, I should say, you don't plant orchids in the ground, am I right? You're like, I'm not going to put them in like I would some other plant. Generally they're in pots or a specific container that is just for orchids.
Most of these orchids are epiphytic or terrestrial. They grow either on trees or they'll grow, some of them grow on the ground. There's an orchid, a fairly common orchid in Southern California called an epidendrum. It's very showy. It produces very large clusters, almost like a big snowball.
Okay.
Multicolored type things, and they'll grow on the ground. But most orchids have to be grown in a pot where they get good drainage. Yeah. And they get air circulation.
And you mentioned some grow on trees, right?
Yeah, that one is probably accustomed to growing on a tree.
So how would you do that?
Well, the plant in nature just attaches itself.
Okay, it's not something you could do on your own, or?
Well, you could. Yeah, there's that orchid is part of the Cattleya. Actually, the Laelia anceps is what it's been called. It's one of the parents is a Laelia anceps. Those plants you can attach to a tree in a shady area, and their roots will eventually spread out and attach themselves to the tree itself.
Wow. Well, I've had orchids that I'll have in a pot, and all of a sudden, you know, it's almost like these little legs start coming out.
They're actually air roots. They're fine. I wouldn't cut them off.
Okay, that's okay.
It's not
good
a
to know.
idea.
I want to remind people that this show is this weekend. It's up at Westminster Mall, and that's up to 405, so pretty easy to get to. It's Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, the Summer Exotic Plant and Orchid Festival, and it's free to go in there. There's going to be all kinds of vendors and information, so you can buy different kinds of exotic plants, get great information while you're there. And the website is nhosinfo.org. That's Newport Harbor Orchid Society info.org. A lot of fun and a lot of different things. I know we've been talking about orchids. It's the main thrust of it.
There will also
but there'll be all kinds of things.
There will also be a Vietnamese bonsai.
Oh, nice.
And
that'll be really nice.
Some of these are just absolutely magnificent.
Yeah.
They're very large ones. And you can see that a lot of care has been taken to produce these. And there's also going to be a Vietnamese art display.
Very good. So get on up there Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. Friday and Saturday, 10 until 9. Sunday, 11 until 6. That's Westminster Mall.
Thank you.
Good to see you again, Joe. We'll see you again another time, your next show, and we'll be right back.